the patriarch of the fire spirit race. Xianxia instantly heaved a sigh of relief because he was safe now. The other members of the fire spirit race felt the same as well because they didn't have to worry about being slaughtered anymore. Yang Yi and the sword spirit had solemn expressions on their faces. Just a glance at him allowed Yang Yi to realize that the old man wasn't someone he could fight right now, even if he had 2 sword servants at the half-saint realm and the stone of suppression. After he appeared here, the old man paid no attention to the surroundings, and he raised his head to look up into the sky instead. A short while passed before he frowned slightly and said, "It has been a few hundred years. This time, the defiant profounders aren't just waiting for a chance to cause trouble. They intend to swarm out completely." Meanwhile, Su Jiqing walked over to the old man and bowed. "Grandpa Patriarch, Jiqing shouldn't have disturbed your closed-door cultivation, but I had no other choice. Our fire spirit race has suffered a calamity. I had no choice but to summon you and ask you to avenge the dead members of our race so that they may rest in peace." As she spoke, she started to describe Yang Ye's atrocities. Of course, she couldn't avoid exaggerating during this process. A short while passed before the old man gazed at Yang Yi. Yang Ye's heart shook because the old man's gaze seemed like it could pierce through his entire body. Yang Yi hurriedly circulated his sword, intent to form a barrier before himself. However, that feeling of being seen through still remained. Yang Yi was astounded because he realized that the old man was much stronger than he'd expected. "A rare genius," the old man said. "I intended to kill you, but I treasure geniuses. Stay and I won't kill you." Xianxia's expression changed. "Patriarch, he killed so many members of our race, and he even refined Elder Qi and Elder Yu into puppets." Xianxia hadn't been able to finish speaking because the old man interrupted him. "Xianxia, I can accept that you have selfish motives because everyone has some. However, I really dislike it when the members of our race do things that harm other members of our race because of their own selfish motives. Yet you did exactly that. I'm not talking about Yang Yi. I'm talking about how you seized the opportunity to kill Tong Fan's granddaughter." Xianxia's expression changed. He wanted to say something in response, but the old man waved his hand and said, "It has come to pass, so it's pointless regardless of what you say." When he spoke up to this point, he gazed at Tong Fan, who stood at the side with a gloomy expression on his face. The old man said, "Little Tong, I watched you grow up, and I understand your temper. I've never thought about asking you to give up on your revenge, but the defiant profounders are about to emerge right now, and our fire spirit race has lost 3 half-saints now. Internal conflict can't be allowed to occur right now." "So Xiaoman died in vain?" Tong Fan spoke with a savage expression on his face. The old man replied, "If both of you survive after the defiant profounders are dealt with, then both of you can have a fair fight. If you die in battle yet Xianxia survives, then I'll personally deal with it for you and avenge your granddaughter." Xianxia's pupils constricted. A short while passed before he lowered his head slightly, and a cold glow flashed through his eyes. Tong Fan gazed at the red-haired old man for a short while before he said, "Patriarch, I trust you." As he spoke, he walked over and stood behind the old man. The old man nodded, and then he gazed at Yang Yi before he said, "What about you? I won't become enemies with the fire spirit race if Xianxia dies," said Yang Yi in response. "Tell me what you would do if Xianxia isn't killed," said the old man. "I'm very curious as well. What would you do if I don't die?" Xianxia spoke as well. Yang Yi gazed at the old man and spoke seriously. "The fire spirit race will definitely be annihilated." Xianxia laughed with ridicule and said, "You," the old man spoke as well, "you don't have such strength." "Ha ha." Yang Yi chuckled and said, "I know that I'm unable to annihilate your race right now, and it's even to the extent that leaving safely will be a problem for me. At least you know the extent of your ability." Xianxia ridiculed. Yang Yi gazed at the red-haired old man and said, "You're a half-saint, a true living fossil. So all the half-saints here would definitely be unable to defeat you, let alone me. However, don't forget that I have backing as well. I presume you're aware of what happened to the members of the hallowed halls on Profounder Continent." Yes, I have two extraordinary half-saints standing behind me. They aren't at the hallowed grounds right now, but it doesn't mean that they can't come here. Yang Yi withdrew a jade slip as he spoke. Should I call them here right now, and then ask them to fight your fire spirit race to the death? I guarantee that all the members of your race who are beneath the half-saint realm will definitely be annihilated before backup from the other experts of the hallowed grounds can arrive. As he finished speaking, Yang Ye's eyes turned scarlet red, while he seemed like he'd gone mad. The sword spirit glanced at Yang Yi yet didn't speak a single word. Stop trying to trick us. Xianxia spoke in a low voice. Yang Yi replied, Then why don't you give it a try? Xianxia was about to attack when the Grand Elder stopped him and said, The hallowed grounds sent 10 half-saints and countless monarch realm experts to the continent, and they were even led by Shen Kong, who brought the stone of suppression with him. In the end, Shen Kong died, countless monarch realm experts fell, and a few half-saints perished as well. However, this fellow Yang Yi is still alive. He isn't lying. Top-rate experts really do exist on the continent. Xianxia's expression turned unsightly as he said, Could it be that we're going to be threatened just like that? The Grand Elder said, Let the Patriarch decide. The red-haired old man gazed at Yang Yi for a short while before he said, I'd intended to spare you so that you could be of use to me, fire spirit race. But you're too vicious and murderous. If you're allowed to live, then you'll definitely become a formidable enemy for my race. So, suppress him and put the sword servants away. Right at this moment, the sword spirit suddenly shouted. Yang Yi didn't hesitate to activate the stone of suppression and instantly suppress the old man to the 9th rank of the monarch realm. After that, he placed the sword servants in the primordial pagoda. At the same time, the sword spirit's voice resounded once more, Sword flight. As soon as her voice resounded, a bright ball of light that was formed from swords appeared beneath Yang Yi and her feet. A ray of light flashed, and then both of them vanished on the spot. How quick! They're 500 kilometers away, the Grand Elder exclaimed with astonishment. The red-haired old man nodded and said, It's a pretty good technique, but it's not a problem. He raised his hand and grabbed as he spoke. 500 kilometers away. I didn't expect it wouldn't have been able to trick that old man. Yang Yi had just heaved a sigh of relief when his expression suddenly changed drastically. He turned around and saw an enormous palm tearing through space as it grabbed at him and the sword spirit. It was extremely swift to the point that only a moment passed after he laid eyes on it, and it was already in front of him. Its fingers opened wide and clawed down upon him and the sword spirit as if it intended to crush them into pieces. Sword flight. The sword spirit's voice resounded once more, and then they vanished on the spot and appeared a few hundred kilometers away. However, the enormous palm appeared out of thin air in the sky above them at practically the exact same moment, and it was less than 10 m away from them. Sword flight. The sword spirit's voice resounded once more, and then a ray of light flashed beneath their feet before they appeared 150 kilometers away. However, they'd only just arrived there when the enormous palm immediately appeared above them. Moreover, it was only around 5 m away from them this time. Let me do it! Yang Yi shouted as he stretched out his hand, and the sword spirit instantly transformed into the ancient sheath and entered his grasp. After that, he condensed an intense sword, sheathed it, and drew it. Slash! In an instant, 10 overlapped heaven wrens charged into the sky and crashed against the enormous palm. Bang! The sword energy instantly exploded apart. The palm shook violently and slowed down for a moment while a huge number of cracks appeared on it. But it wasn't long before it descended swiftly. Yang Ye's pupils constricted, and he held the ancient sheath up to defend against it. Bang! As soon as it came into contact with the ancient sheath, a mouthful of blood essence sprayed from Yang Ye's mouth, and the dragon's scales on him instantly split apart while blood started seeping out from between the cracks. Just like that, the enormous palm smashed down on Yang Yi at an extremely swift speed. Yang Yi issued a command in his heart, and the two half-saint sword servants appeared by his side before they slapped their palms against the enormous palm as well. It shook violently and then vanished. However, another enormous palm appeared out of thin air right after that, and it pressed down onto Yang Yi and the two sword servants again. The sword servants smashed their fists forward again, and then two enormous energy fists flashed forward and smashed against the enormous palm. A huge explosion resounded as the energy palms were blasted apart, and the enormous palm merely stopped for a moment before it continued its descent. Bang! Yang Yi and the two half-saints were slapped deep into the ground. As soon as the enormous palm dispersed, a ray of light suddenly shot out from beneath the ground and vanished into the sky. It entered into the nearby world of lava. The red-haired old man who still resided at the territory of the fire spirit race frowned and said, "He was actually able to endure an attack of mine. What a formidable physical body. He possesses heaven-rank sword intent, combat strength that far surpasses his peers, and a physical body comparable to a half-saint while he's only so young. Allowing you to live will only create a potential threat." As he spoke, he took a step forward, and he vanished before all the other experts of the fire spirit race. It wasn't long before the old man arrived at the world of lava. However, his brows knit together before Yang Yi had vanished without leaving a trace of his aura behind. Xianxia and the others appeared by his side after a little while passed. An expert has executed a secret technique on him, and it has concealed his aura. The red-haired old man spoke in a low voice. That person who did it is extremely strong. Looks like he really wasn't lying. There's an extremely terrifying existence on the continent. His voice carried a rare trace of solemnness. "Patriarch, what should we do now?" asked Xianxia. "Forget it," the red-haired old man said. "Let him leave. I presume he wouldn't dare to enter our territory again. We're letting him go just like that?" Xianxia was clearly quite unwilling. "Do you want me to waste my time on pursuing a monarch realm profounder?" The old man glanced indifferently at Xianxia, and then he said, "Dispatch our forces to guard this place. Don't allow anyone to enter this world of lava." As he spoke, he turned around and vanished before their eyes. While Xianxia was unwilling to let Yang Yi go, he had no other choice because he didn't dare to pursue Yang Yi on his own. Once the old man left, the lava nearby suddenly started moving, and then Yang Yi and the sword spirit walked out from there. However, Yang Yi's injuries were quite heavy right now, because his entire body was covered in blood as if he was made of it. "Let's leave," said the sword spirit. Yang Yi shook his head in response. The sword spirit continued, "We won't be able to fight them if they are to turn back right now, and it's especially so for that red-haired old man." Yang Yi took a deep breath and said, "How can we just leave after suffering such a loss? I've said that I would make the fire spirit race pay their debt with blood." "You can't fight him," said the sword spirit. "I can't fight them in the open, so I'll do it from the shadows." Yang Yi said, "Come, let's attack again. You'll be giving your life away if you head over in your current state." The sword spirit stood in his path and pointed at him. "Your internal organs have moved from their right positions, and they are even damaged. Moreover, practically all your profound energy has been exhausted. How will you avenge Xiaoman if you return now?" "I refuse to leave just like that." Yang Yi clenched his fists. Every time he thought about how Xiaoman died for him caused him to feel like something was about to charge out from within him. It was killing intent and it was rage as well. The sword spirit said, "I know that, but you should let your body recover even if you want to take revenge, right?" Yang Yi took a deep breath, suppressed the killing intent and rage in his heart, and said, "You're right. I can't be impulsive. The most important thing is to recover for now. Only by recovering to my peak would I have a chance to avenge Xiaoman." Yang Yi blasted the nearby lava away and sat cross-legged in midair before he withdrew some extreme-grade energy stones to start recuperating. A ray of light flashed. The two half-saint sword servants appeared in front of Yang Yi, but they weren't on their feet. The sword spirit said, "They suffered that red-haired old man's attack just now. While they haven't been completely destroyed, they are heavily injured, and they won't be able to fight for some time. What I'm trying to say is that the red-haired old man is very strong, and you might not be able to escape with such ease next time." Yang Yi said, "But if I leave just like that, Then what about taking revenge for Xiaoman? It's never too late for a noble man to take revenge. But I'm no noble man. I'm a petty person. I want to take revenge as soon as possible, she replied. But you don't have the strength to do that right now. Xianxia said. Who says that I don't? I admit that I really can't fight them in a frontal assault, but what if I launched sneak attacks? The sword spirit replied in a low voice. You might die. But have you thought about how Xiaoman is already dead? Said Xianxia. The sword spirit gazed at Xianxia for a short while, and then she waved her hand. The spatial rings worn by the two half-saints instantly flew over to her palm, and she said, There are a total of 10 1,000-year-old fire crystals within their spatial rings. It should be helpful to you. I was too impatient earlier and forget about their spatial rings. Xianxia took the rings and glanced at their contents. Besides 10 1,000-year-old fire crystals, there were many other fire crystals scattered within them. All of the fire crystals were over 100 years old, and some were even around 500 years old. Absorbing the energy within these fire crystals is sufficient for you to attain the 5th rank of the monarch realm, she said. However, I don't recommend that you do that, because your mental state wouldn't be able to keep up, and the rise of your cultivation will cause huge latent problems to appear within you. You can choose to advance to the 2nd rank of the monarch realm for now, and then slowly accumulate your strength for your next advancement. Once you've gained a certain level of experience and strength, you can absorb another 1,000-year-old fire crystal to charge into the next rank. All right. Xianxia swallowed one of the 1,000-year-old fire crystals, and then started to absorb the energy emanated from it. One day later, Xianxia suddenly opened his eyes, and then explosive cracking resounded like firecrackers throughout his entire body. I'm finally at the 2nd rank of the monarch realm. Xianxia took a deep breath, and then he glanced at the two half-saint sword servants who stood before him. Their injuries were almost completely healed now because he'd allowed them to absorb a 1,000-year-old fire crystal each. Not only had they recovered with the help of the 1,000-year-old fire crystal, they were even slightly stronger. Meanwhile, the sword spirit suddenly spoke. I've finished refining Guardian Lin's corpse. You can take control of him now. Xianxia nodded in response. The fire spirit race. At this moment, its defenses were much more relaxed because their patriarch had emerged from his closed-door cultivation. A group of profounders from the fire spirit race were gathered in a room, and they were discussing something. I heard the patriarch killed Xianxia with a single slap of his palm. What a pity! The patriarch should have captured him, extracted his soul, and sealed his soul beneath the ground. That way, he would suffer being burned all day and night, and living would be worse than death. That damnable bitch Xiaoman should suffer the same fate. It was all her fault. If she didn't bring that madman back to our territory, our race wouldn't have lost so many people at all. Elder Qian killed that damnable bitch just like that. She really got off easily. She should have had her soul extracted and tortured as well. Both of them deserve death. Especially that bitch Xiaoman. My older brother wouldn't have been killed by Xianxia if it wasn't for her. That damnable bitch really deserves death. All of them deserve death. It's not like we don't have the opportunity to take revenge. Suddenly, a voice resounded from the side. They looked over to the source of the voice. Qian Mei? Jiqing? Someone exclaimed with surprise. Qian Mei and Jiqing walked over to them, and then Qian Mei spoke coldly. Yes, Xianxia is a monstrous genius, and he was very strong. But so what? Wasn't he still smacked to death by the patriarch? Even though he's dead, he still has a younger sister and wives on profounder continent. Jiqing glanced at Qian Mei while her brows knit together slightly, but she didn't say anything, because only she and Qian Mei knew that Xianxia was actually alive. The reason they said he was dead was merely because they wanted to calm the rage of the fire spirit race's members. Profounder continent? One of them frowned. Qian Mei, are you talking about that abandoned place? Qian Mei nodded and said, I've investigated and found out that he has a younger sister and wives at the abandoned place. If we were to capture those loved ones of his, and then torture and humiliate them to death, don't you think that Xianxia wouldn't be able to rest in peace? She was filled with both terror and hatred towards Yang Yi, because she'd suffered unprecedented humiliation from him. So long as Yang Yi was still alive, she would never be able to be at ease. All right, we'll make his younger sister and women live in disgrace. No, we must make everyone related to him suffer inhumane torture, and make Yang Yi unable to rest in peace. Come, let's head to profounder continent. All of you won't have the chance to do that. Suddenly, a voice resounded. Su Jiqing reacted very quickly, and she was horrified as she roared furiously, "It's Yang Yi! He's back! Everyone!" It was too late because a ray of light flashed. It was swift, extremely swift. It was simply swift to the point it seemed like it was an illusion. The bodies of a few dozen members of the fire spirit race stiffened on the spot. Hiss! Their heads instantly flew into the air while fountains of blood sprayed from their necks. Ah! Qian Mei was stunned, and then a shrill cry of extreme horror resounded from her. Meanwhile, a figure appeared in front of her. You! She was just about to say something, but only an instant passed before her voice stopped abruptly. The figure vanished, and a slight breeze brushed by from the figure's movement, causing Qian Mei's head to roll off her neck. In next to no time, only Su Jiqing remained here. A ray of light shot extremely swiftly towards her. However, it suddenly changed its trajectory and shot towards the left. Only an instant passed before the ray of light vanished, and then 3 old men appeared there. It was the red-haired old man, Chen Yan, and the Grand Elder. The red-haired old man glanced at the surroundings, and a wisp of rage flashed through his eyes as he gazed at the corpses which covered the ground. He said, "Good, very good. I really underestimated how brave you are. Not only have you not fled, you even attacked my fire spirit race again. Good, very good indeed. His aura has vanished," said the Grand Elder in a low voice. Qian Mei. Suddenly, a furious howl that sounded like the roar of a wild beast resounded. Qian Yan's entire body trembled violently as he gazed at Qian Mei's headless corpse, and then a violent and vicious aura surged out from within him. "Yang Yi, I'll kill you. I'll definitely kill you. I'll definitely kill you." Qian Yan's voice resounded throughout the surroundings, and then he transformed into a ray of fiery light that shot towards the distance. Patriarch! A wisp of worry flashed through the Grand Elder's eyes when he saw Qian Yan act like a madman. "Follow him," said the old man. The Grand Elder nodded, and then he hurriedly chased after Qian Yan. "Grandpa, he's too strong." Meanwhile, Su Jiqing spoke abruptly. She'd practically been unable to react before everyone around her, including Qian Mei, were killed just now. Moreover, she would have probably perished as well if the red-haired old man and the others hadn't arrived on time, because she didn't have any confidence in being able to resist that ray of light which was shot at her. "He's really not bad," the old man said. "Qian Yan was really wrong this time. He really shouldn't have killed Xiaoman and offended that fellow, Yang Yi, because of his own selfish motives. Our fire spirit race has lost more people in this incident than it has in the last 100 years. Su Jiqing said, "I've utilized the Joint Intelligence Network to investigate him. He's a madman, a complete and utter madman. He always annihilated all his enemies, and he usually does it while disregarding the consequences. With his character, he wouldn't hesitate to do as he said and slaughter our entire race if he had the ability. He won't have the chance." The red-haired old man closed his eyes slightly and said, "Send my orders for the other 4 guardians to abandon their current tasks and return immediately. The seniors are suppressing the defiant profounders." Su Jiqing hesitated and said, "If they return now, then the hallowed halls will definitely." "I'll deal with the hallowed halls," said the old man. Su Jiqing suddenly said, "Grandpa, even your strength isn't sufficient to deal with that fellow, Yang Yi?" The old man replied, "He'll definitely die in a head-on battle. However, I'm not his current target, and the other half-saints aren't as well. His current targets are the ordinary profounders of our race. Moreover, a supreme expert has executed a secret technique on him to conceal his aura, so even I can't sense his aura." Ah! Suddenly, A miserable and shrill cry resounded from afar. It was Xianxia's voice. The old man's expression changed slightly as his figure flashed and vanished on the spot. The red-haired old man floated in midair while the Grand Elder and Xianxian stood before him. At this moment, Xianxian's left arm was gone, and the cut on his shoulder was flat like a mirror while blood was still dripping down from it. There wasn't that much rage and resentment on his face anymore because it was mostly replaced by fear and terror. "He has gotten stronger," the Grand Elder spoke in a low voice. "Moreover, he has that mysterious woman and 2 half-saint realm puppets by his side. Xianxian might have died if I was just a little later." The old man glanced at Xianxian and said, "With the stone of suppression in his possession, a few half-saints aren't a threat to him at all. Give up on pursuing him for now and order all the members of our race to return. You two start patrolling with Tongfan instead, and don't give him any chances to slaughter anyone else while we wait for the 4 guardians to return." When he spoke up to this point, he looked towards the distance and said, "Let me see how he annihilated my fire spirit race." As soon as he finished speaking, the old man's figure exploded apart, and then countless strands of flames shot towards the sky like fireworks before they surged off in all directions. "Divine flame clones." The Grand Elder's expression changed slightly as he said, "According to rumor, the divine flame clone technique can be used to split one's consciousness into a myriad of strands of divine flames. Every single strand of divine flame is like a clone, and every single clone has half the strength of the main body. I never expected that the Patriarch would have actually cultivated it successfully, but half his strength. So long as any one of the Patriarch's clones locate him, then the Patriarch would be able to instantly combine all the clones." Xianxian spoke abruptly in a low voice. "He'll definitely die if he's found. Have you ever regretted it?" The Grand Elder spoke abruptly. After all, if Xianxian had been able to slightly restrain himself and not bully the weak, then perhaps all of this wouldn't have occurred. "I do. I regret I didn't kill him right away. What a pity." Yang Yi shook his head within one of the volcanoes on Inferno Mountain Range. Earlier, he'd almost killed Xianxian, but the Grand Elder had rushed over and forced him to retreat immediately. Because once he was locked in battle and the red-haired old man was allowed to rush over, then it might be he who died in the end. The sword spirit who stood beside him was just about to say something when her expression suddenly changed, and she shouted, "Hide!" Yang Yi was slightly stunned, and then he didn't hesitate to issue a command in his heart and hide in the primordial pagoda with the sword spirit. Right after they'd just entered the primordial pagoda, over a dozen strands of flames suddenly entered the volcano, and they circled around the area before they left. Yang Yi and the sword spirit left the primordial pagoda once those flames left. "What was that?" Yang Yi frowned. She pondered deeply for a moment before she answered him. "It should be a clone technique. You would definitely die if you were noticed just now, because he would definitely be able to arrive here in an instant once they detect your presence. You're absolutely not a match for him now, even if you include me and the other 3 half-saint sword servants. He's just like your master. He isn't an ordinary half-saint at all. He's very strong indeed." Yang Yi spoke in a low voice. He had no doubt that even if the red-haired old man wasn't as strong as Elder Mu, the old man was absolutely not much weaker than Elder Mu. In any case, the old man was absolutely not someone he could fight right now. "What do you intend to do right now?" asked the sword spirit. "Cultivate." At this moment, Yang Yi understood that while his strength wasn't bad, it was still too weak when he faced a true living fossil. Moreover, the area outside would definitely be heavily guarded, so it wouldn't be suitable for him to head over and kill again. She said in response, "I'll guide you." Yang Yi glanced at her and was slightly stunned. She asked, "Am I not qualified enough?" Yang Yi shook his head. "You absolutely surpass me if it's in terms of attainments in the Sword Dao. I'm naturally exceedingly happy that you're willing to provide me with guidance." The sword spirit said, "Your strongest sword technique is Heaven Rend. If you go all out, you should be able to instantly overlap 12 Heaven Rends. 12 Heaven Rends enhanced by the critical strike technique and light speed would definitely be able to instantly annihilate Monarch Realm experts, and it could even instantly kill 9th rank Monarch Realm experts. If we include the Stone of Suppression, There's practically no one beneath the half-saint realm who can kill you. When she spoke up to this point, she paused for a moment before she continued. However, practically all your enemies are half-saints now, and your heaven rend is quite insufficient against them. Even if you utilize the Stone of Suppression, a half-saint that has been suppressed to the monarch realm would still maintain their combat instinct and grasp the laws. You've killed 2 half-saints. But ask yourself if you are confident in your chances of winning in a fair fight. Xianxia thought for a moment, and then he shook his head. Qi Hua had almost escaped even when he joined forces with a half-saint sword servant that day. If it was a one-on-one battle, then it would mostly end with his loss. Even if he relied on his sword intent and physical body to avoid defeat, he would be absolutely incapable of harming Qi Hua. The sword spirit continued, "Unfortunately, I would be able to let you know about the true way to utilize the sword domain if I'm able to truly recover my memories. If that happens, then you would absolutely be able to protect yourself even if you can't defeat that red-haired old man. As for the other half-saints, you would definitely possess the ability to kill them even in a head-on battle." Xianxia laughed bitterly and said, "Don't worry. I'll rescue your main body as soon as possible once we're done here." He was irritated by his issues with the sword domain as well, because as his strength grew incessantly, he even felt that the sword domain was quite useless. He tried to study it, but besides the ability to suppress his enemy's speed and strength, he wasn't able to notice anything else that was special about the sword domain. However, the sword spirit and those geniuses on the hallowed rankings said that it was extremely formidable. So, he felt like he possessed a billion in a safe yet didn't have the combination for it. The sword spirit nodded and continued, "You have 2 weak points right now. The first is your cultivation is lacking. Even though there seems to be no difference between experts at the 1st rank or 9th rank of the monarch realm to you, the gap is actually very huge. If you are at the 9th rank of the monarch realm right now, then you wouldn't be incapable of fighting back even if you're no match for that red-haired old man. However, you can't rush when it comes to the improvement of your cultivation. It's something that should be completed naturally. The second weak point is your sword techniques. You have too few of them. So, your main objective right now is to completely master the mortal sword of the tri-apex sword technique. It's best if you're able to merge your sword intent, light speed, and critical strike with it. Only then would you be able to pose a threat to a half-saint in a head-on battle. Just like that, the sword spirit started to provide Xianxia guidance as he cultivated within the volcano. During this period, the red-haired old man's clones had searched through the volcano. However, the sword spirit notified Xianxia in advance, so he was able to avoid them safely. On the other hand, his master of the mortal sword grew better and better with the sword spirit personally guiding him and demonstrating it to him. The fire spirit race. The red-haired old man sat upright on the antique wooden armchair at the center. Chen, Tongfon, and the Grand Elder were on his left while 4 red-robed old men were on his right. All of them were half-saints. If the red-haired old man was included, then there were 8 half-saints gathered in the hall. "I've searched the entire area," the old man spoke in a low voice, "but I'm still unable to find him." The Grand Elder asked, "Could he have left?" The red-haired old man shook his head and said, "That's not very likely. He attacked our race once more that day, so how could he possibly leave without accomplishing his objective? But his aura has been concealed, and coupled with the fact that he seems to possess some sort of advanced concealment technique, even I am unable to locate him unless he shows himself." The red-haired old man's voice carried a trace of helplessness and coldness. For the very first time, he was actually helpless against a monarch realm profounder. If news of this were to spread, then he wouldn't be the only one to be disgraced. Even the entire fire spirit race would lose face as well. The old man continued, "He's like a volcano that's waiting to erupt while he hides like this, and he might cause our fire spirit race to suffer horrible losses at any moment. So, we must drag him out of hiding and annihilate him." "Patriarch, even you aren't able to sense his aura?" It was the red-robed old man who led the group of 4 on the right that asked this question. The red-haired old man shook his head. "That person who concealed his aura for him is much stronger than I am, and that's probably not the only reason. The profounder continent isn't as weak as we imagined. This time, our fire spirit race can be said to have stood on opposing sides of profounder continent, just like the hallowed halls. Moreover, the defiant profounders are about to emerge from the seal. The future is truly worrying. We can't just wait for him to show himself anymore. The red-robed old men who spoke earlier spoke in a deep voice. That kid is a madman. He'll definitely only show himself when he's confident in his ability. Of course, it's impossible for him to assassinate us. However, he'll definitely attack the other members of our race. So, are we really going to do that? Another red-robed old man said, for the sake of a monarch realm profounder? He isn't an ordinary monarch realm profounder. The red-robed old man who was the first to speak earlier stated. He must die, and we must obtain the stone of suppression that he has with him. The red-haired old man nodded, and then he stood up and said, then it's decided. All of the others here stopped hesitating and nodded. Within the volcano, Xianxia was cultivating when the space before him suddenly trembled, and then Fu Jinxian's voice appeared in his mind. Leave quickly! The Patriarch and the others intend to activate the Hellfire Formation. It's a formation that covers this entire underground world. So long as they stand within the central pivot of the formation, then everything enveloped by the formation will be within their grasp. You won't be able to hide from them anymore. Xianxia's face fell. If it really was as Fu Jinxian had said, then not to mention avenging Xiaoman, even his own survival would be a problem. He could hide in the primordial pagoda, but what if they didn't deactivate the Hellfire Formation? Could he just stay within the pagoda forever? Moreover, hiding in the pagoda wasn't absolutely safe either. Let's go. We'll still be able to escape if we leave now, said the sword spirit in a low voice. Xianxia clenched his fists. He was truly unwilling to leave just like that. If we don't leave now, then why might not be able to leave anymore? The sword spirit continued. There are at least 5 half-saints amongst the fire spirit race's forces right now. Coupled with that red-haired old man, even your master may not be able to do anything to them. Even though you can execute the mortal sword now, to be honest, you'll definitely die once they locate you. Xianxia remained silent for a short while before he suddenly looked downwards. This mountain range is made up of over 10,000 volcanoes, and endless lava and terrifying beings reside beneath the volcanoes. Do you think we would be able to drown the fire spirit race if we make all of these volcanoes erupt? The sword spirit's eyelids twitched. But have you that about how we would make them erupt? Moreover, how would you escape even if you make them erupt? Who said we have to do it ourselves? Said Xianxia. She frowned. You intend to use the sword servants? Are you really willing to lose half-saint sword servants? Why not? Xianxia said. There are so many half-saints outside there. Why would I fear losing some now? She glanced at him and said, at least 2 half-saint sword servants will have to detonate themselves in order to make these volcanoes erupt, and it should be sufficient to make all of them erupt. Once that happens, even if it can't drown the entire fire spirit race, it'll be able to drown at least 3/4 of it. If the beings beneath the lava aren't under the fire spirit race's control, then the fire spirit race will be destroyed. Then let them be destroyed. Xianxia spoke indifferently. There's a problem. She continued. Making these volcanoes erupt represents that we have to leave 2 half-saint sword servants in Inferno Mountain range. With the strength that red-haired old man possesses, he'll be able to notice them immediately once they leave your side, and he'll be able to arrive here instantaneously. That's easy, Xianxia said. So long as I show myself at the same time, then he'll definitely come to kill me first. So long as he does that, then we would have won. She warned. You're playing with fire, he replied. It's not the first time anyway, she said. Then I'll go mad with you this once. In a hall within the fire spirit race's territory, the red-haired old man and the other 7 half-saints were about to activate the Hellfire Formation. Suddenly, all 8 of them raised their heads and gazed towards the same direction. He's here. One of them spoke these words before all 8 of them vanished on the spot. Xianxia transformed into a ray of light that shot swiftly towards the world of lava that led to the surface, and he was extremely swift. He'd merely utilized a few breaths of time to rise up from Inferno Mountain range and arrive before the world of lava. However, 8 old men tore through space and obstructed his path when he was just about to enter the world of lava. Isn't it too late to try and leave now? Xianxia spoke ferociously. Meanwhile, a ray of light flashed over from afar, and the sword spirit appeared by Yang Ye's side. Is it done? Asked Yang Yi. She nodded in response. No one will be able to save you today. The red-haired old man raised his hands, and then a cage that was formed from flames instantly appeared around them. It wasn't very big, but it trapped everyone here. Xianxia said, Don't worry, Yang Yi. We won't let you just die. We'll allow you to experience all the methods of torture that exist in this world, and we'll make living worse than death for you. Moreover, we'll head to Profounder Continent, capture everyone related to you, and then humiliate them in front of you. No, that's far from sufficient. If you have a son, I'll make him life his life as a flameling. It'll be even better if you have a daughter, because I'll make her become a whore right in front of your eyes. I'll make you and everyone related to you become the most miserable people in the world. Yang Yi paid no attention to Xianxia. He flipped his palm, and an intense sword condensed in his grasp. He glanced at the 8 half-saints who stood before him and said, I said that I would make the fire spirit race pay a price it'll never be able to bear because of what that old dog, Xianxia, and his granddaughter did. Those people I killed before this were only the beginning. You won't have another chance, said the red-haired old man. Have all of you enjoyed fireworks in the past? Yang Yi spoke abruptly. The red-haired old man frowned while an extremely bad feeling appeared in his heart. I've prepared grand fireworks for your entire race. Come, let's enjoy it together. Yang Yi chuckled as he issued a command in his heart. Bang! Bang! Suddenly, 2 resounding explosions erupted from over 500 kilometers away, and it caused the entire ground to quake. At this moment, all the profounders of the fire spirit race sensed the tremors, and they practically simultaneously flew up into the air before they gazed towards the source of the explosion with shock in their eyes. However, that was only the beginning. Rumble! Rumble! Endless rumbling resounded after those 2 explosions, and the sound of rumbling instantly enveloped the entire territory of the fire spirit race. The endless rumbling was like thunderclaps that shook comparatively weaker members of the fire spirit race to death. At the same time, over 10,000 pillars of fire that were over 30 kilometers wide shot into the sky at the exact same moment that the rumbling began. In just an instant, the entire territory of the fire spirit race was covered in the smoke and ash of volcanic eruptions, and the entire sky turned dark. Their entire territory started to quake while countless torrents of lava, smoke, and ash shot through the sky like fireworks. Moreover, the waves of heat within them even caused some of the fire spirit race's profounders who were near Inferno Mountain range to be instantly suffocated to death. Lava surged out in torrents, and shrill cries resounded incessantly. It was like doomsday had really arrived. Inferno Mountain range. All 8 of the half-saints here turned pale, and even the red-haired old man was no exception. All of you go save the others. Save as many as you can. Don't fight the beings within the lava. The red-haired old man clenched his fists while a formidable aura surged out incessantly from within him. Even his voice was trembling slightly right now. Let's go. The Grand Elder and the others didn't dare to hesitate. They immediately tore through space and charged towards the lava and smoke. Were the fireworks enjoyable? Yang Yi grinned. The red-haired old man took a deep breath and said, Those beings beneath the volcanoes don't belong to my fire spirit race. They are beings that were formed within the lava through countless years of time. Most of them don't possess any intelligence, and they only know how to kill and destroy by instinct. You've released them when the defiant profounders are about to emerge from the seal. Do you know what consequences that would bring about? Yang Yi shrugged and said, Does it have anything to do with me? At the same time, his profound energy had started to surge. The old man's face twitched, and he spoke word by word. I'll kill you today even if you run to the ends of the world. As soon as he finished speaking, bang! A stream of flames suddenly erupted from him, and it was like the eruption of a volcano. It emanated a terrifying aura of obliteration. At practically the exact same moment, Yang Yi withdrew the stone of suppression and suppressed the old man's cultivation before he joined forces with the sword spirit to tear a gap in the cage of flames that surrounded them. After that, the sword spirit hurriedly executed her sword flight technique. A torrent of flames instantly arrived where they stood right after they'd just vanished. At the same moment that Yang Yi and the sword spirit vanished, a muffled groan resounded, and it was clearly Yang Ye's voice. Yang Yi, you won't be able to escape today. The old man's figure transformed into a torrent of flames that vanished on the spot. Yang Yi and the sword spirit raised their speed to their limits as they traveled through the world of lava. Everywhere they passed, sword energy raged through the surroundings and tore the lava apart. However, the red-haired old man was following closely behind them. This won't work for long. Do you have any other ideas? Yang Yi flipped his palm, and the Mage Force shield appeared in his grasp. Even though the old man was suppressed to the 9th rank of the Monarch realm now, his strength was still stronger than an ordinary half-saint. Fortunately, the suppression from the Stone of Suppression caused the old man to be slowed down significantly, so the sword spirit and Yang Yi weren't completely without a chance to escape. You block his attacks while we flee out of this world of lava. I can't raise my speed to its max while we're surrounded by the lava here, but he doesn't suffer any obstruction at all. So, we'll only have a chance of escaping him if we get out of here. The sword spirit executed the sword flight technique again while she spoke, and then both of them vanished on the spot. But it wasn't long before the red-haired old man appeared behind them again. Bang! Meanwhile, a pillar of flames flashed forward and instantly arrived before Yang Yi. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched, and he didn't dare act carelessly when dealing with it. His profound energy surged into the Mage Force shield as he raised it to block the pillar of flames. Bang! The impact of the collision blasted both Yang Yi and the sword spirit over 1 kilometer away. Because he suffered the brunt of the force, he felt like he'd been rammed by a mountain. His entire body felt sore and hurt, whereas the sword spirit was in a comparatively better state as she was behind him. I'll definitely kill you even if you run to the ends of the world. The old man's voice resounded by their ears, and it caused their expressions to change slightly. They were just about to dodge, but an expanse of flames instantly enveloped them. OM! A ray of light shot up and tore the flames apart, and then both Yang Yi and the sword spirit transformed into rays of light that shot towards the distance. We can't go on like this. Yang Ye's voice carried extreme seriousness, and there was even a thread of blood on the corner of his mouth. Bang! Suddenly, the lava in the distance was suddenly torn apart, and then a black-robed figure appeared in front of them. Yang Yi and the black-robed figure were both stunned. It's you! Both of them spoke the same words at the same time, and both their voices carried pleasant surprise. The black-robed figure was Qin Bufan. Help me for a moment. Use your Stone of Suppression and join forces with me to kill those dogs that are behind me. Qin Bufan's voice carried a trace of excitement. Those dogs have been fucking chasing me for days without stopping for a moment. I'll finally be able to get my revenge today. You're being pursued? How many half-saints are there? Asked Yang Yi. Around 10. Qin Bufan waved his hand and said, It's fine. With the Stone of Suppression on our side, we can kill them while we run. Yang Ye's heart sank, and he said, I'm being pursued as well. Qin Bufan was slightly stunned, and he said, Don't tell me that it's another 10. Yang Yi replied, It's only 1. What's there to fear if it's just 1? Fucking kill him. Qin Bufan spoke heroically. Meanwhile, the red-haired old man just happened to arrive behind Yang Yi and the sword spirit. A defiant profounder. The old man immediately frowned when he saw Qin Bufan. Just him. Qin Bufan pointed at the red-haired old man and said, I'll deal with him for you. As he spoke, his figure shot explosively towards the old man. Bang! A figure was blasted flying. It was Qin Bufan's figure. Fuck! Yang Yi! Just go. I don't know you. Qin Bufan's voice carried a trace of pain. It wasn't long before those half-saints who were after Qin Bufan arrived here, and it was Shen Ming who led the group. Just like that, Yang Yi, Qin Bufan, and the sword spirit were surrounded. Yang Yi, it's you. Xian Ming's face instantly turned gloomy when he saw Yang Yi, because he hated Yang Yi much more than he hated Qin Bufan. 10 half-saints. The corners of Yang Ye's mouth twitched, and he said angrily, Qin Bufan, you bastard. Why did you come to the fire spirit race's territory? Even if you did, why bring 10 half-saints with you? What terrible misfortune to have encountered you. He was extremely happy when he met Qin Bufan just now because even if they couldn't defeat the red-haired old man, their joint strength would be sufficient to keep them alive and well. But he hadn't expected that Qin Bufan had brought 10 half-saints with him, and an old enemy of his was amongst them. What a bastard! You're the true bastard. I shouldn't have come with you to the hallowed grounds. I've been pursued all day and night lately, and I haven't even had the time to drink a mouthful of water. Qin Bufan continued. I'd thought of fleeing to the fire spirit race's territory to shake off those dogs of the hallowed grounds. But I never expected that I would encounter you again. Encountering you isn't the problem. The problem is that you've offended such an old half-saint. Motherfucker. What the fuck did you do here to actually make such a living fossil pursue you? Qin Bufan was very happy as well when he met Yang Yi because Yang Yi had the stone of suppression. So, their chances of escaping would be much higher. But he hadn't expected that Yang Yi would have offended such a half-saint. After all, it was an existence who could fight 10 half-saints on his own. Nothing much. I just slaughtered the fire spirit race. Yang Yi spoke indifferently. Qin Bufan was slightly stunned, and then he gave Yang Yi a thumbs up. You're great. Don't worry. I'll bury you if I'm lucky enough to escape today. Yang Yi said. But it looks like you won't have the chance to escape. Qin Bufan gazed at the red-haired old man and said, Revenge for a crime should be sought from the one who committed the evil. I didn't slaughter your fire spirit race, so it isn't related to me at all. What do you think? He was confident in his ability to break out of this encirclement if the red-haired old man didn't act against him. The old man replied calmly, Everyone has the responsibility to annihilate the defiant profounders. Qin Bufan nodded, and then he gazed at Yang Yi. Actually, I think we should work together, right? Do you have a choice? Asked Yang Yi. Let's be fair. You offended that red-haired old man, so you should deal with him. Qin Bufan continued. I'll deal with the experts that I offended as well. All right? Shut up. Meanwhile, Xian Ming suddenly shouted, Qin Bufan, Yang Yi, do both of you really think that you're half-saints? Both of you can dream of escaping today even if you're half-saints. Shut up my ass. Why the fuck are you butting in while I'm talking? Qin Bufan's figure flashed, and he transformed into an arc of light that shot towards Xian Ming. I only need to blow a mouthful of air out to kill an old dog like you. Rumble. But it didn't take long for Qin Bufan to return to Yang Ye's side again. Couldn't be helped. He'd only just attacked when the 10 of them joined forces against him. While he was strong, it was impossible for him to resist the joint forces of 10 half-saints. Or it should be said that it was very amazing that he hadn't been instantly annihilated. There are too many of them. Qin Bufan shook his head and said, But it's fine because I'll have help soon. Think about how to escape first, said Yang Yi. Based on their current strength, it was definitely impossible for them to defeat such a force. Not to mention defeating such a force, even escaping was a huge problem. The red-haired old man, Xian Ming, and the others didn't attack, and they just surrounded Yang Yi and Qin Bufan. On the other hand, Yang Yi and Qin Bufan didn't act rashly, and were just looking for an opportunity to escape. Which expert of the fire spirit race are you? Xian Ming gazed at the red-haired old man while a serious expression filled his eyes. Because the old man was very strong to the point of being stronger than his senior brother, Shen Kong. You aren't qualified to know. The old man replied, I know what you're worried about, and I'm aware of your intentions. However, I will definitely not allow you to have the stone of suppression in Yang Ye's possession. It belongs to our hallowed halls. Xian Ming spoke in a low voice. It was in the past, but now that it has fallen into Yang Ye's hands, it belongs to him now. The red-haired old man said, If it falls into my hands now, then it belongs to me. Xianming stated, "Do you intend to become enemies with my hallowed halls?" The old man chuckled and said, "Your hallowed halls really can be considered to be the strongest amongst the forces of the hallowed grounds, but it isn't the only formidable existence here. Coupled with the fact that the defiant profounders are about to emerge from the seal, and your hallowed halls will be the first to bear the brunt of it. I think you're daydreaming if you're thinking of using the hallowed hall's name to threaten me. If we fight, then it wouldn't just cause both our sides to suffer injuries. It'll allow others to benefit from it." Xianming said, "Why don't we get them first, and then we can decide how to share their possessions, all right?" The red-haired old man pondered deeply for a moment and said, "All right." Bang! Suddenly, a deafening explosion resounded from the other side of the world of lava, and then Chen Yan appeared before the old man. At this moment, Chen Yan's expression was very unsightly. No, it should be said to be filled with fear. "What happened?" asked the old man in a low voice. Chen Yan spoke with a trembling voice and pale countenance. "Countless lava monsters. The weakest amongst them was at the monarch realm, while there were even half-saints. 2 guardians have fallen in battle, while countless others have perished. Patriarch, our fire spirit race is finished." The red-haired old man's pupils constricted as he said, "I underestimated those beings beneath the volcanoes. Order the half-saints and monarch realm experts to lead the remaining members of our race and retreat to the surface. Save as many as you can. What are you still standing here for? Go on quickly." Meanwhile, over a dozen rays of fiery light shot out swiftly from the distant lava, and then they stopped by the old man's side. It was Tong Feng, the Grand Elder, and the others. Besides them, there were over 100 profounders of the fire spirit race. There were both men and women of all ages amongst them. "Patriarch, we must retreat from here." The Grand Elder's voice was filled with anxiety and a trace of terror. Bang! Suddenly, a huge explosion drew over their gazes, and then everyone's expressions changed. Qin Bufan gulped down a mouthful of saliva and said, "What exactly did you do?" Yang Yi was quite stunned as well. A dense group of various lava monsters filled their fields of vision. Every single being was at least 300 m tall, so all of them simply seemed like ants before the lava beings. Most importantly, the weakest amongst those lava beings was at the monarch realm. Moreover, there were at least a few tens of thousands of them, and their numbers were still increasing. Suddenly, those lava beings stopped moving, and then a little girl who was covered in flames appeared before them. She seemed to be only 5 or 6 years old if it was based solely on her outward appearance, and she seemed to be at the same age as Lei Lin. Just like Lei Lin, she looked quite strange. Her hair was braided into 2 fiery red twin tails, and ripples surged through the space around her with every light shake of her twin tails. Besides that, her body was covered in what seemed to be fiery red clothes that were formed from lava. Most importantly, her eyes had 2 dark red balls of flames within them. A sprite king. The red-haired old man's pupils constricted while shock filled his voice. He hadn't expected that a sprite king actually existed beneath the fire spirit race's territory. Xianming and the others had heavy expressions as well because while they had 10 half-saints on their side, they were facing a few tens of thousands of monarch realm experts. Moreover, there were half-saints amongst the lava beings as well. Xianming's group had the intention to retreat when they realized this, but they weren't willing to leave just like that as well. Because Yang Yi and Qin Bufan were right before their eyes, and it would be difficult for them to catch Yang Yi and Qin Bufan again if they were to leave right now. The little girl suddenly said, "Is Ancestor Fire Spirit still alive?" The red-haired old man was slightly stunned and said, "Who are you? Why do you know the ancestor of my fire spirit race?" The little girl gazed at the old man and said, "He's your ancestor? Good. Very good. He sealed me deep beneath the ground in order to subdue me all those years ago, and he even placed 10,000 formations to suppress me. Unfortunately, he didn't come to subdue me when I was weak. Now it would seem like he probably fell during that battle. If I knew that, I would have broken out a long time ago. I wouldn't have been forced to come out as I have now." The hearts of everyone who heard this shook. She has lived for 100,000 years. She's in existence from the ancient times. The red-haired old man spoke in a low voice. My ancestor perished for this world. So can the enmity between the two of you. The enmity between us. The little girl interrupted him and said, will have to be paid for by those from the same race as him. None of you fellows from the fire spirit race can hope of escaping today. All of you have to die. As soon as she finished speaking, 50 balls of flames suddenly appeared around Yang Yi and the others. Every single ball of flames had a fist-sized little girl within them. However, it was exactly such tiny fist-sized little girls that caused the expressions of everyone here to change drastically. Because every single one of them was at the half-saint realm. It was a group of 50 half-saints. We're finished. Qin Buffan's lips twitched. After all, it was a group of 50 half-saints, a few tens of thousands of monarch realm experts, and that little girl who'd lived for over 100,000 years. Moreover, they were utterly unable to flee while they were surrounded by the lava. Meanwhile, Xian Ming suddenly said, this enmity is between you and the fire spirit race. It isn't related to us at all. We have no ill intent to you as well, so we'll leave right now, all right? She replied casually, since you've come, then stay. Bang. The 50 balls of flames suddenly emanated flames that covered the surroundings as they swept towards Yang Yi and the others. How horrifying was the sight of 50 half-saints attacking in unison. However, the red-haired old man, Xian Ming, and the others weren't ordinary existences. So, they immediately attacked simultaneously when those 50 half-saints attacked. Yang Yi, if you don't want to die, then use the stone of suppression to suppress them. Xian Ming howled furiously. Suppress my ass. Yang Yi, the sword spirit, and Qin Bufan joined forces and started fighting their way out of the encirclement. As for what Xian Ming said, what a joke. Suppress those lava beings to help Xian Ming? He was no fool. The little girl's main target was the fire spirit race, and he might become her new target if he were to suppress them. Suddenly, a ray of fiery light flashed, and then the little girl suddenly appeared before Yang Ye's group and blocked their path. I sense a familiar aura from you. The little girl stared Yang Yi in the eyes. The red-haired old man, Xian Ming, and all the experts from both the fire spirit race and hallowed halls had joined forces, and some of them were ceaselessly charging out of the encirclement. However, the price they paid to accomplish this was extremely high. In less than 10 breaths of time, Xian Ming's side had lost 4 half-saints, whereas the fire spirit race was in a worse state. Besides its half-saints, practically 90% of the others had perished. Even though the red-haired old man's strength was formidable, there were almost 30 half-saints attacking him right now. Even with the red-haired old man's strength, he could only defend himself when facing the joint attacks of 30 half-saints. Yang Yi, my fire spirit race has been annihilated because of you. I swear that I'll definitely annihilate your entire family. I'll make all of them unable to experience reincarnation. The red-haired old man's figure exploded apart, and it transformed into countless strands of flames that charged towards the surroundings. A gap in the encirclement was instantly blasted open, and the remaining members of the fire spirit race and hallowed halls didn't let this opportunity slip by. All of them charged out through the gap and instantly vanished within the lava. Around 30 half-saints pursued them while the remaining 20, the countless monarch realm lava beings, and the little girl encircled Yang Ye's group instead. I've never had a day of peace since I got to know you. Qin Bufan glanced at the surroundings. As he gazed at the 20-plus half-saints and the enormous lava beings that covered the world around him, he'd abandoned all thoughts of charging out of this encirclement. Attacking was no different than courting death. At this moment, Yang Ye's heart fell to rock bottom. He hadn't expected that the little girl would actually abandon the fire spirit race to obstruct his path instead. After all, he swore that he'd never ever met her in the past. The little girl floated in front of Yang Yi as she asked, Human, I sense a familiar smell coming from you. It's a very familiar smell. Tell me why or you're going to die. Yang Yi took a deep breath, flipped his palm, and the stone of suppression appeared in his grasp before his profound energy surged into it. In an instant, the cultivations of everyone here was instantly suppressed. He didn't know what she was talking about, but he knew that if he didn't act now, then he might not have another chance. At the moment that Yang Yi withdrew the stone of suppression, the profound energy within Qin Bufan's body had started to circulate madly, and he was about to attack. At this critical moment, a bolt of lightning flashed before Lai Lin appeared in front of Yang Yi. Lai Lin was stunned for a moment, and then Yang Yi, Qin Bufan, and the sword spirit watched with astonishment as Lai Lin charged over and wrapped her arms around the red-clothed little girl. She spoke with pleasant surprise. "Xiaoying, you're alive. You're alive. That too. Too great." As she spoke, she actually took the red-clothed little girl's face in her hands and started kissing her repeatedly, causing the little girl's face to be covered in saliva. However, the little girl wasn't angry at all. She embraced Lai Lin instead while her face was covered in happiness just like Lai Lin's was. "Both of you know each other?" Yang Yi was astounded, and he heaved a huge sigh of relief in his heart. Earlier, he was about to fight the little girl to the death, and he knew that the battle would most probably end with his death. Lai Lin took Xiaoying's hand and flew over to Yang Yi. "This is Xiaoying. She was born on the same year, same month, and same day as me. But she's much stronger than I am." "I noticed." Yang Yi nodded. Even though she hadn't attacked, her strength was absolutely formidable, and it might even be on par with the patriarch of the fire spirit race. Moreover, while she looked like a child just like Lai Lin did, her speech and actions were like an adult. Xiaoying gazed at Yang Yi and spoke abruptly. "Do you know why you're still alive?" Yang Yi said, "Because of Lai Lin?" Xiaoying rubbed Lai Lin's head and said, "She's very pure and doesn't understand how evil the heart of man is. That was why the dragon ancestor was able to trick her to become the core for his formation all those years ago. I'm able to sense that she really trusts you, and she had a very good impression of you. Even then, you didn't place a restriction within her to take control of her, and that's why you're still alive right now." Lai Lin shook Xiaoying's hand and said, "Xiaoying, Big Brother Yi is a good person. He gives me food, protects me, and is very nice to me. Don't hit him, all right?" Yang Yi was speechless. "That's how you were tricked all those years ago. Lai Lin, when will you be able to figure that out?" Xiaoying turned around to gaze at Lai Lin, while her voice carried a trace of anger. Bang! The half-saints and lava beings in the surroundings started to surge when they noticed Xiaoying's anger, and flames sprayed from them as if they were about to attack at any moment. "Fuck off!" Xiaoying glanced at them, and they instantly moved over 1 kilometer backward. "Why you being so fierce?" Lai Lin let go of Xiaoying's hand while tears had started to form in her eyes. Xiaoying took Lai Lin's hand while her voice became gentle. "I'm not trying to be fierce to you. I just feel hatred. I hate all the humans in this world. Lai Lin, the humans aren't worthy of our trust." When she spoke up to this point, she pointed at Yang Yi and said, "Perhaps he hasn't placed a restriction on you or devoured you because he doesn't have the method to accomplish it. Or perhaps he has other plans. Understand? He won't." Lai Lin even gazed at Yang Yi as she spoke, and then she asked, "Big Brother Yi, you won't bully Lai Lin, right?" The corners of Qin Bufan's mouth twitched violently. Does that girl really have to be so naive? Yang Yi walked over to Lai Lin, rubbed her head and said, "That friend of yours is right. Lai Lin, don't trust humans rashly. But don't just trust no one. In any case, you can trust me, because I'll absolutely not harm you. You're really too shameless." Qin Bufan shook his head, and he felt like he'd gained a completely new understanding of how shameless Yang Yi was. "I feel like killing you right now." Xiaoying stared Yang Yi in the eyes. "I trust Big Brother Yi." Lai Lin took Yang Yi's hand and said, "He won't harm me. Big Sister Zir as well. Big Sister Zir won't harm me as well." Yang Yi smiled, and then he gazed at Xiaoying and said, "As you said, I would have at least placed a restriction within her if I had ill intent towards her. But I didn't." When he spoke up to this point, the sword intent within his surged madly, and merely a moment passed before the sword intent condensed into an intense sword. Yang Ye's actions caused the half-saints and lava beings in the surroundings to become restless, but they didn't dare act rashly without Xiaoying's orders. Heaven-rank sword intent. That's quite rare indeed. Xiaoying's face was calm and completely composed. Your ability to attain heaven rank sword intent is sufficient to display your natural talent and mentality. It would be impossible for you to attain heaven rank sword intent if you did something that went against your conscience. Even then, I still won't allow Lei Lin to continue staying by your side. Lei Lin glanced at Yang Yi, and then she glanced at Xiaoying. Xiaoying, why don't we stay together with Big Brother Yi? You'll realize that he's a good person if you stay with him for a while. Moreover, we can play together and never split up again. All right? Yang Yi was at a loss for words. Xiaoying said, staying with him isn't safe for you. Moreover, you're too weak. So, stay with me and cultivate properly. Meanwhile, Yang Yi said, Lei Lin, stay here. Even though he was reluctant to part with her, it was just as Xiaoying said. Lei Lin wouldn't be safe by his side. He could be said to be at odds with the world while he resides in the hallowed grounds. Moreover, staying with him wouldn't be of any benefit to Lei Lin. He couldn't just make her into a glutton, right? Besides that, Lei Lin and Xiaoying were the same species, and Xiaoying was extremely formidable. So, Lei Lin's safety would be guaranteed by Xiaoying's side, and Xiaoying might even be able to improve Lei Lin's strength. But I'm reluctant to part with you and Big Sister Zier. Lei Lin spoke softly. Yang Yi smiled. It's not forever. Just cultivate properly with your friend, and you can come look for me and your Big Sister Zier once you're as strong as her. At that time, you'll even be able to help me and your Big Sister Zier fight off those bad fellows. All right? Lei Lin nodded, and then she said, I'll play with Xiaoying for now, and we'll come look for you and Big Sister Zier once this place isn't fun anymore. Everyone here was at a loss for words. Suddenly, 30 balls of flames suddenly appeared from apart. Yang Ye's heart shook because they were the half-saints that had left in pursuit of Shen Ming, the red-haired old man, and the others. Needless to say, the forces Xiaoying possessed were extremely terrifying. Xiaoying said, all of you can leave now. Yang Yi hesitated for a moment, and then gestured with his hand. The violet cloud lightning appeared on his palm as he said, Lei Lin, I don't have anything to give you, so take this to play with. If it's possible, then don't eat it. But what if I get hungry? Lei Lin blinked. The corners of Yang Ye's mouth twitched, and then he took Lei Lin's hand and placed a spatial ring on her index finger. He said, there's a huge number of tasty things in here. Take some yourself when you feel hungry. Stay here and cultivate well. Your Big Sister Zier and I will come visit you. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi didn't stay here for another moment. His figure flashed alongside the Sword Spirit and Qin Bufan, and they vanished within the lava. Lei Lin glanced at the violet cloud lightning in her palm and said, Xiaoying, can we go see Big Brother Yi in the future? The flames in Xiaoying's eyes suddenly started to revolve, and she said, all of you sacrificed so many sprites like us for the sake of sealing the defiant profounders all those years ago. Now it's time for all of you to pay. 1,000-fold. Xiaoying, what are you talking about? It's nothing. Come. I'll take you to see something fun. After they emerged from the ground, Yang Yi didn't even have the chance to feel happy when the sword spirit's body suddenly slumped towards the ground. Yang Ye's expression changed, and he hurriedly grabbed her in his arms. What's wrong? Something has happened to my main body. The sword spirit's voice was extremely weak. The defiant profounders are about to emerge from the seal. Meanwhile, Qin Bufan spoke abruptly. You're that sword's sheath. The sword spirit glanced at Qin Bufan and said, even though my main body has suppressed all of you for 100,000 years, haven't I been trapped there for 100,000 years as well? To a certain extent, there's actually no difference between us. Yang Ye's profound energy was surging within him while he stayed vigilant. After all, Qin Bufan and the other defiant profounders had been sealed for 100,000 years, and it would be impossible for them to feel no resentment. Qin Bufan glanced up into the sky and said, don't worry, every enmity has a person responsible for it. I, Qin Bufan, know who my enemy is. Out of consideration for the fact that we've joined forces in battle, I'll remind you that not everyone makes such clear differentiation like me. Since you have that ancient sheath with you, countless defiant profounders will definitely attack you in the future. After all, its main body has tortured us for 100,000 years. Xianxia replied, I don't like to cause trouble, but I'm not afraid of it, right? Qin Bufan nodded, and then he transformed into an arc of light that shot towards the distance. You're leaving just like that? Asked Xianxia. It's too dangerous to stay with you. Qin Bufan's voice resounded from the sky. The corners of Xianxia's mouth twitched while he said to himself, what a pity. He'd intended to ask Qin Bufan to take him to where the sword spirit's main body was. However, it was obvious that Qin Bufan had figured out his intentions and fled before he could even ask. We must find where my main body is as soon as possible. The sword spirit's voice carried a rare trace of solemnness, and it seemed like her condition was very serious. Xianxia pondered deeply for a moment before he waved his right hand, and then Fu Jingxian appeared before him. The thing he'd asked the sword spirit to do earlier was to get Fu Jingxian. We've escaped. Fu Jingxian revealed happiness on her face, and then she glanced at the surroundings and said, what about the fire spirit race? It's finished. Xianxia spoke indifferently. Oh, she was stunned for a moment, and then merely spoke a single word before she fell silent. Do you know where the defiant profounders are being sealed? Asked Xianxia. He had to rescue the sword spirit's main body no matter what. Not to mention that it could improve his strength, it could even allow him to gain true control over the sword domain. Moreover, the sword spirit had helped him a lot, so he couldn't just watch as she died. What do you intend to do? Fu Jingxian was shocked. I hope that you don't ask too many questions. Xianxia looked her in the eyes while his voice carried a trace of impatience. Fu Jingxian glanced at him and then spoke softly. The place that the defiant profounders are sealed at is called the Pagoda of Confinement. It's deep within the ground, even deeper than where my fire spirit race resided. Moreover, it's densely covered by grand formations and countless half-saints. To be honest, you won't be able to enter at all. Xianxia frowned and said, do you have a way in? Fu Jingxian thought for a moment and said, there's one way. Tell me, said Xianxia. She explained, there are 4 paradises of cultivation in the hallowed halls. They are the forest of illusions and demons, the netherworld ocean, the cloud pool of lightning, and the pagoda of confinement. The pagoda of confinement is considered to be the best amongst the paradises of cultivation because it's filled with abundant amounts of fire element energy. The amount of energy there is equivalent to fire crystals, and it's even those that are 500 years old and above. Of course, it's the most dangerous amongst the paradises of cultivation, because defiant profounders might appear at any moment. Moreover, if the defiant profounders who emerge aren't strong, then the half-saints of the hallowed halls wouldn't lend a hand at all. The geniuses of the hallowed halls would have to deal with them on their own. Xianxia said, get to the point. She continued, if you want to get to the pagoda of confinement, then you must sneak into the hallowed halls. Of course, that isn't easy. Even the geniuses of the hallowed halls wouldn't be able to enter the 4 paradises of cultivation with ease. There's only a single way for you to accomplish that, and it's to exchange the point of the hallowed halls for it. Points? Xianxia frowned because it was the first time that he'd heard of this. She nodded. Everything in the hallowed halls requires points. For example, cultivation techniques, combat techniques, treasures, and even clothes or food have to be bought with points. Moreover, even marriages require points to be completed. In any case, you can't do anything in the hallowed halls without points. So, the members of the hallowed halls, and especially those of the younger generation, have to earn points every single day, because only points would allow them to obtain better things. On the other hand, strength is needed to obtain points, so the hallowed hall strength is the greatest throughout the hallowed grounds. Under such circumstances, even the laziest person would have no choice but to work hard. Xianxia finally understood why the geniuses of the hallowed halls far surpassed Profounder Continent or even the fire spirit race. If one didn't work hard while one resided within such an environment, then one might starve to death. Is there any other way to enter the pagoda of confinement? Asked Xianxia. After all, sneaking into the hallowed halls wasn't a really reliable method. It wasn't the fire spirit race that he had a chance of escaping even if he was exposed. He would definitely die if he was exposed in the hallowed halls. She shook her head and said, "Unless you want to enter by force." "How many half-saints are there?" She answered, "At least 50 in the outer circle, and there might be more now." Xianxia's eyelids twitched. "That many?" she replied. "It's not only the half-saints of the hallowed halls that are there. The half-saints from my fire spirit race and various other races are there as well. So, it's impossible for you to enter by force." Xianxia said, "Looks like I have no other choice. But what about your appearance?" Fu Jingxian seemed hesitant to finish her sentence. Xianxia rubbed his face and said, "Don't worry. I know how to solve that problem." She suddenly said, "You won't kill me, right?" Xianxia glanced at her and asked, "Why are you asking me such a question?" She replied, "Only I'm aware of your identity and objectives. No one would be aware of it once I'm dead." Xianxia gazed at her for a short while and said, "I always seek a clear conscience when I do anything. I wouldn't be able to keep my conscience clear if I killed you for that." She heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Thank you." Actually, she wasn't afraid of death, but she was afraid that no one would help her take revenge if she died. Xianxia lowered his head and gazed at the sword spirit. "Hold on for a while longer. I'll save your main body soon." "Thank you," said the sword spirit. Xianxia shook his head. "It's I who should thank you," she said. "I'm too weak now and can't take human form at will, and I can't execute Heavenrend with you as well. Be careful." Xianxia nodded and said, "It's fine. I've almost mastered the mortal sword, and I might not be able to utilize sword techniques for some time." She nodded lightly, and then transformed into the ancient sheath in Xianxia's grasp. Xianxia took a deep breath as he gazed at the ancient sheath, and then he put it away and said, "Come, let's head to the hallowed halls." Ancient City of Hallows. The ancient City of Hallows belonged to the human race, and it was the place in the hallowed grounds that had the most experts and was the strongest. At the same time, it had the most monstrous geniuses as well, because every single one of the geniuses in the top 10 positions on the hallowed rankings could surmount their realms of cultivation to do battle. As he stood outside the ancient City of Hallows, Xianxia noticed for the very first time that he was actually so tiny. The city towered into the clouds, and he couldn't see the top of it even with his cultivation at the monarch realm. As he stood beneath its city walls, he was tiny like an insignificant speck of dirt. Fu Jingxian explained softly, "The city was jointly created by all the human saints of the ancient times. The stones that make up the city walls are obsidian that come from far in the north. These obsidians are extremely solid, and even monarch realm experts would find them difficult to destroy. Besides that, the city is covered in the energy of the laws which those ancient experts left behind. So, even half-saints wouldn't be able to destroy the city." At this moment, Xianxia's appearance had changed. He'd used a medicinal pill called the Transmigration pill to change his appearance. He wasn't afraid that others could discern his identity because he'd merely utilized the medicinal properties of the pill to change the order of the muscles beneath his face. So, strictly speaking, his face was still his face, but the form of the muscles beneath his face had been changed. So, even half-saints would find it impossible to discern anything, because his face wasn't altered by a human skin mask or illusory techniques. On the other hand, Fu Jingxian's appearance remained the same. That was her own request because only then could she return to the remaining forces of the fire spirit race. Besides that, Fu Jingxian received news from the fire spirit race's patriarch. Actually, so long as they were still alive, every single member of the fire spirit race received that news, and their patriarch ordered them to immediately travel to the ancient City of Hallows. The two of them had just arrived before the entrance yet were stopped by an old man. The corners of Xianxia's eyes twitched slightly because the old man who guarded the entrance to the city was a half-saint. The old man glanced at them, and then his gaze descended onto Xianxia in the end. He said, "A human? The fire spirit race." Xianxia and Fu Jingxian nodded. "Do you have points?" said the old man. Xianxia shook his head. 20 extreme-grade energy stones. As soon as the old man finished speaking, he added, "Fire crystals will do as well. They must be 100 years old and above." The corners of Xianxia's mouth twitched. It actually costs 20 extreme-grade energy stones just to enter the city. The hallowed halls really knows how to do business. They walked into the city after handing over 20 extreme-grade energy stones. But they were immediately stopped by 3 men upon entering the city. Fu Jingxian? I never expected it to be you. The white-clothed man who led the group sized up Fu Jingxian, and then he smiled. I'd thought that I'd mistaken you for someone else, but I never expected it to really be you. I heard your fire spirit race was annihilated. Is that true? I never expected that you would have gotten another man. TSK. How's his technique? Is it better than mine? Haha. She's that Fu Jingxian. A yellow-robed man who stood by the white-clothed man's side instantly had his interests aroused, and he ceaselessly sized her up and clicked his tongue. What a stunner! Isn't she? The white-clothed man smiled. When I encountered her in the fire spirit race's territory, she pretended to be intimate with me but actually wanted to kill me. Yet she thought I wasn't aware. But I knew from the beginning. Every time I saw her intending to kill me yet being hesitant while I played with her was truly beyond enjoyable. Haha! Fu Jinxian's face turned ghastly pale. She didn't really care about her reputation because she didn't have one for a very long time. She cared about Yang Ye's attitude towards her because she had gained quite a good understanding of Yang Ye's temper after being by his side throughout this period. Even though Yang Ye didn't look down upon her, she knew that he didn't like what she did. Sure enough, Yang Ye frowned. In Yang Ye's opinion, he really didn't want to be dragged into Fu Jinxian's problems, but it was truly not nice for him to just abandon her here. He shook his head, glanced at her and said, "Let's go." She heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly nodded. Meanwhile, the white-clothed man blocked Yang Ye's path and said, "Brother, let me discuss something with you. Are you sure that you want to do that?" asked Yang Ye. He chuckled and said, "Of course. I still want to have some fun with her. You wouldn't refuse, right?" Yang Ye turned his head to look at Fu Jingxian, and he asked, "Are you willing?" She quickly shook her head in response while a trace of terror appeared in her eyes, because her intuition told her that Yang Ye was getting slightly annoyed. Yang Ye gazed at the white-clothed man and said, "You saw her response." The white-clothed man restrained his smile, and then he tapped Yang Ye's chest as he said, "I told you that because I was giving you face. Now I don't want to give you face anymore. I'm going to do her right in front of you." Bang! A muffled bang resounded, and then the white-clothed man was blasted flying. He smashed onto the ground over 300 m away, and the collision caused countless cracks to spread open. It was quick, extremely quick. Many people in the surroundings weren't even able to see what happened clearly before the white-clothed man had smashed against the ground. However, they had no doubt that it was the gray-robed man who stood by Fu Jinxian's side. But when they looked towards Yang Ye again, they noticed that he'd vanished from where he stood. The white-clothed man was completely stunned, because he hadn't even noticed how he'd been blasted flying. He forcefully endured the discomfort he felt and was about to stand up, but a foot stomped down on his chest. Yang Ye looked down at him and said, "It just happens that I don't want to give you face anymore as well. You!" Bang! The white-clothed man intended to say something, but it was too late. Yang Ye had raised his leg and kicked it against the white-clothed man's stomach, causing his figure to instantly curl into the shape of a cooked prawn as it flew over 300 m away. In the end, it smashed against the ground and smashed a small hole in the ground. Such commotion caused many people to circle around successively. "Do you realize what you're doing?" The yellow-robed man gazed at Yang Ye with a gloomy expression, but he didn't attack. Yang Ye glanced coldly at the yellow-robed man, and it caused the latter's expression to change slightly. He instinctively took 2 steps back, but he forced himself to maintain a calm and composed expression on his face as he said, "We're from Snow's Lament." As he spoke, he pointed at his left chest, and there was a pure white snowflake there. Bang! The yellow-robed man was blasted flying, and he smashed against the ground at the white-clothed man's side. Snow's Lament. Yang Ye placed his hands behind his back and said, "Never heard of it." An uproar resounded in the surroundings. That fellow's a human. How could he have possibly not heard of Snow's Lament? Did he come out of some rock? Or he said that intentionally to humiliate Snow's lament. Humiliate it? That's not very likely. Even though he's strong, he's all alone. Perhaps he's an opponent of theirs? While Snow's lament is inferior to the alliance of sabers and swords and Lunar Right Hall, it has over 100 Monarch Realm experts. These three fellows are obviously nobodies in Snow's lament. In short, we'll have a show to see. We really will have a show to see. Look who has come from Snow's lament. Hiss! The haughty Xianxia? I heard that fellow attained the 5th rank of the Monarch Realm just a month ago. Based on the aura he's emanating right now, it should be true. Tisk, tsk. Someone's going to die now. The spectators watched as a bald man led over a dozen youths towards Xianxia. The bald man's figure was quite robust, and he was much larger than an ordinary person. Moreover, his bare chest had a 20 centimeters long scar on it. Besides that scar, there were many other smaller scars, causing him to seem quite terrifying. The bald man had an enormous pitch-black axe in his right hand, and he just dragged the axe along as he walked towards Xianxia, causing ear-piercing screeching and sparks to arise from the ground. The bald man walked very slowly, but practically every single person here felt an extremely heavy pressure pressed down upon them, and it was like a mountain was crushing down towards them. The bald man stopped, glanced at the white-clothed man and yellow-robed man who couldn't move a muscle as they laid there, and then he raised his head and looked at Xianxia. His gaze stopped on Xianxia's left chest for a moment, and then he said, "You're not from the Alliance of Swords and Sabers, nor are you from Lunar Right Hall, and it's impossible for you to be on the hallowed rankings. I'm really curious. What exactly gave you the confidence to strike a member of ours in the city?" Xianxia waved his fist and said, "Understand. You think you're very strong?" Xianxia cracked his neck, and it instantly caused clear and resounding cracking noises to resound. "It shouldn't be a problem for me to fight 10 people like you." Xianxia spoke honestly. An uproar resounded in the surroundings again. A 2nd rank Monarch Realm expert said that he can fight 10 5th rank Monarch Realm experts? Does he think he's one of those madmen on the hallowed rankings? Ha ha ha! Xianxia roared madly with laughter, but his laughter slowly became quite ferocious. He said, "You'll have to pay for your arrogance. Now I'll make you pay that price." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly threw the enormous axe at Xianxia, and it whistled sharply through the air as it smashed down towards Xianxia. The enormous axe was extremely quick, and it was quick to the point that the spectators couldn't even see it clearly. All they could see was a ray of white light and hear sharp whistling through the air. They were very clearly aware that Xianxia hadn't held back, and he'd struck a killing blow. However, they found it to be understandable. After all, members of Snow's Lament had been beaten up in public, and they'd even been insulted. If he didn't kill that fellow to make a show of strength, he wouldn't just be unable to maintain his status in Snow's Lament. He might even be unable to maintain his status in the city. It wasn't long before countless people witnessed a scene that caused their eyes to instantly open wide. Xianxia's axe that could split a mountain apart had been grabbed by a hand. It was Xianxia's hand. At this moment, the faces of Xianxia and the others were immediately covered in shock. They weren't fools, since Xianxia was able to stop Xianxia's attack with such ease. It proved that Xianxia's strength far surpassed Xianxia. Snow's Lament has bitten off more than it can chew now. At this moment, such a thought had appeared in the minds of all the spectators. Xianxia started swinging the axe casually, and it caused the space around him to warp. This scene made the eyelids of all the spectators twitch. It was especially so for Xianxia. At this moment, he was beyond shocked because he noticed that the fellow before him possessed a physical body that was at least a few times or even many times stronger than his own. Where did this fellow come from? Why have I never seen him in the past? The enormous axe was being spun incessantly in Xianxia's grasp, and the gazes of all the spectators had descended on it. All of them were very curious to know if Xianxia would be able to stop his attack. However, Xianxia suddenly tossed the axe into the ground, and then he gazed at Fu Jingxian and said, "Let's go." Fu Jingxian was slightly stunned, and she only returned to her senses when she saw Xianxia walking off. At the same time, she heaved a huge sigh of relief. Earlier, She'd thought that Yang Yi was about to start a slaughter, and she didn't doubt that Yang Yi would dare to do so. But if he were to do that, then it would definitely cause a huge amount of trouble for them. According to the plan she'd formed with Yang Yi, their first objective after entering the city was to find a place to stay, and then think of a way to allow Yang Yi to sneak into the hallowed halls. If Yang Yi were to start slaughtering them here, then all sorts of changes would occur to their plans. Fortunately, Yang Yi hadn't done that. Even though she didn't understand why Yang Yi had suddenly stopped, she felt that it was good that he had. Fu Jingxian hurriedly followed after Yang Yi, and they just walked off towards the distance while everyone else watched from afar. It's over just like that? In Yang Ye's opinion, bullying these fellows was utterly boring. He'd only attacked just now because he felt that those two fellows were going too far, and Fu Jingxian was with him now no matter what. He was truly unable to stand by idly. Most importantly, he was very clearly aware why he'd come to the ancient city of Hallows. He'd come to look for an opportunity to enter the pagoda of confinement, and he hadn't come to kill. Not now, at least. Some say that a single thought can determine kindness and ill, and he could be said to have chosen kindness now. However, while one intended to put the matter to rest, it was very common for others to refuse to let that happen. "Stop right there!" San suddenly shouted in a deep voice when Yang Yi and Fu Jingxian had walked quite a distance away. Shit! That was the only thought Fu Jingxian had in her mind because what she was worried about the most had still happened. She wanted to persuade Yang Yi, but she was very clearly aware that her words carried no weight with the man who stood by her side. Perhaps it would be possible if it were Xiaoman. However, Yang Yi paid no attention to San, and he just continued forward. "What a joke! How humiliating would it be if I were to stop just because you told me to?" The spectators noticed the expression on San's face. It was gloomy and ferocious. He was bluntly and completely disregarded in public, and there was nothing more embarrassing than that. He'd actually just come here to lend a hand. After all, members of Snow's Lament had been beaten up, and since he was a member of Snow's Lament as well and had encountered such a scene, then he had to deal with it no matter what. Yet now, he wasn't just here to help. It was because of dignity now. It was for the sake of both Snow's Lament's dignity and his own dignity. So, stop them. As soon as San's voice resounded, the group of over a dozen that stood by his side shot forward, and they obstructed Yang Yi and Fu Jingxian's path. San stretched out his hand, and the enormous axe transformed into a ray of light that flew back into his grasp. He dragged the axe on the ground as he walked over to Yang Yi and Fu Jingxian, and he said, "How can I allow the two of you to just leave like that? What about those two brothers of my Snow's Lament?" Yang Yi chuckled and said, "Then what do you want?" San pointed at the two men who were lying on the ground and said, "Take that woman with you, kneel to them, and beg for their forgiveness. If they forgive both of you, then you can leave after each of you sever an arm and a leg of your own." He knew this man who stood before him was very strong. At the very least, the man was definitely stronger than him. But so what? There were only two of them while he had over a dozen people on his side. Moreover, all of them were Monarch Realm experts. Most importantly, he had Snow's Lament's support. So unless it was a member of Lunar Right Hall or the Alliance of Swords and Sabers, there was no one that Snow's Lament didn't dare offend. Yang Yi said, "What if I refuse?" San spoke fiercely. "Then I'll kill both of you, since it's like that." Yang Yi nodded and said, "Then I'll just kill all of you. After all, I don't want to die." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi clenched his right fist and smashed it forward. The powerful force in his fist caused the space in front of him to warp. San's expression changed slightly. Fortunately, he was prepared, and he raised the axe in front of his chest. Crack! The powerful force within the punch cracked the axe apart, and its remaining force blasted San flying. San spat out over 10 mouthfuls of blood essence as he flew in the air, and his eyes were filled with terror. At this moment, he noticed that this fellow was immensely more terrifying than he'd imagined. Meanwhile, Yang Yi suddenly appeared before him. San was horrified and said, What are you trying to do?" A faint savage smile appeared on the corners of Yang Ye's mouth, Kill all of you. As soon as he finished speaking, his fist smashed forward once more. Life was always like this. While one would want to put the matter to rest, the other wouldn't allow it. It was even to the extent that making compromise might make others think that one was afraid. So, there were many times in life that compromising would only make the other try to take a yard when given an inch. It was how the world worked. Bang! Xianxia was blasted flying before the gazes of everyone. In the end, he crashed to the ground, twitched for a while, and then there was no further movement from him. He was dead. At this moment, all the spectators looked at Yang Yi with astonishment. After all, it was just conflict that could be easily resolved. Yet now it was irreconcilable. A man and a woman were watching Yang Yi from the window of a tower over 1 kilometer away from where Yang Yi stood, and their faces carried a trace of seriousness yet were mostly covered in amusement. There were 3 men and 3 women behind them. The men stood on one side while the women stood on another side, and they were clearly from different groups. Not bad. Regardless of whether it's his strength or speed, they're both not bad indeed. I only wonder how much of his strength he actually used. The man smiled and said, "How interesting. I never expected that someone would take the path of body refinement now, and I never imagined that someone would actually cultivate it to such an extent." The woman glanced indifferently at Yang Yi and said, "His strength is not bad, but he's too impulsive and disregards the consequences. Such a person won't live long in this city." The man suddenly asked, "So your lunar right hall isn't interested in him?" She replied, "It's not that I'm not interested, but I want to see his true strength. If he only has such a level of strength, then he isn't worthy of making my lunar right hall fight Snow's lament for him. I'm really curious about his true strength as well." The man chuckled, and then he shot his gaze at Yang Yi. After Yang Yi punched Xianxia to death, he turned around and gazed at Fu Jingxian, who was still in shock. He said, "Let's go." Fu Jingxian suddenly recovered from her shock upon hearing his voice, and then she just followed him with a blank expression in her eyes. "You actually dared to kill a member of my Snow's Lament? You?" Suddenly, one of the profounders from Snow's Lament recovered from his shock, and he immediately flashed over and obstructed Yang Ye's path when he noticed that Yang Yi intended to just leave after killing Xianxia. Bang! The man hadn't even been able to finish speaking before he was blasted flying. It was a single and lethal attack. The remaining members of Snow's Lament were horrified, and not a single one of them dared to charge forward and stop Yang Yi. "Sorry." Fu Jingxian walked by Yang Ye's side as she spoke softly. She was very clearly aware that all of this had happened because of her. Yang Yi replied, "I don't know what happened in the past and I don't want to know. Perhaps you did all of that because you were helpless, but you should understand that it's impossible to take revenge by doing that, and it would just disgrace yourself instead. Just think about it. Would your son and husband be willing to see you disgrace yourself in order to avenge them?" Yang Yi didn't look down on her, and he didn't think that he had the right to do so. It was even to the extent that he felt slight admiration for her. After all, a woman like her had been able to make herself continue living after experiencing such events, and she was even able to disregard her dignity to take revenge. That was absolutely not something most women could do. Just like if someone could have saved his mother all those years ago, then he wouldn't have hesitated to abandon that thing called dignity. Of course, Yang Yi would feel disdain towards her if she'd sacrificed her dignity for herself. But she hadn't. If a woman who possessed no strength wanted to seek revenge, then she would have no choice but to do as Fu Jingxian had. Fu Jingxian remained silent. Yang Yi didn't speak further as well. In the end, they were just working together for now, and her choices for the future were her business. He couldn't stop her, nor did he want to. "How do I get those points?" asked Yang Yi. At this moment, his main objective was to obtain those points so that he could enter the pagoda of confinement and rescue the sword spirit's main body. You have a few choices when it comes to earning points, but there are only 2 methods to gain the most points in the shortest period. The first method is to accept missions from the hallowed halls, and you'll be able to obtain points by completing those missions. The second method is to rise up on the hallowed rankings. You should be aware that the hallowed grounds has its hallowed rankings, and you'll be given a certain amount of points for ascending onto it. Moreover, you'll be rewarded with a certain amount on a monthly basis as well. Besides that, you'll even be given combat techniques, cultivation techniques, and even secret techniques. However, it's very difficult. Fu Jingxian glanced at him when she spoke up to this point, and she said, "Of course, it shouldn't be a problem for you." Suddenly, both of them stopped moving because a group was obstructing their path. The 4 figures on the left were all men, and every single one of their left chests were embroidered with the diagram of a crossed sword and saber. The 4 figures on the right were all women, and a pure white moon was embroidered on their left chests. Gong Jian from the Alliance of Sabers and Swords. The man who led the group on the left gazed at Yang Yi as he spoke. Mu Ling from Lunar Right Hall, said the woman who led the group on the right. It's actually one of the 3 swords of the Alliance of Sabers and Swords. Gong Jian, someone exclaimed. I heard that he attained the 9th level of sword intent last month. I wonder if it's true. It should be. Just look at him. Even though he isn't emanating any sword intent on purpose, his entire aura is extremely sharp and fierce. How could he possibly attain such a state if he hadn't attained 9th level sword intent? I'm more interested in Mu Ling. I watched her kill 3 experts at the 9th rank of the Monarch Realm by herself around 2 months ago, and she's only at the 5th rank of the Monarch Realm now. Moreover, I heard that she has fought a half-saint. I wonder if it's true. Both Lunar Right Hall and the Alliance of Sabers and Swords have shown themselves. Could they be intending to recruit that fellow? They should be. Alas, that fellow is quite lucky. So long as he joins any one of them, then the problems he would have faced for killing Shursan should be resolved. That may not necessarily be the case. Everyone knows that the Master of Snow's Lament is very protective of his members. Moreover, it's related to Snow's Lament's honor and dignity. So would anyone in the city join Snow's Lament in the future if they're unable to redeem their honor? Let's just watch and see. As the others in the surroundings discussed all of this, Fu Jingxian was the only one to snicker at it. After all, she was the only one who was very well aware of how terrifying that fellow who stood by her side was. Even if Yang Yi couldn't utilize his sword right now and couldn't display his full strength, she had no doubt that he was absolutely not someone that Snow's Lament or the Master of Snow's Lament could go against. Yang Yi glanced at them, and his gaze lingered a little longer on Mu Ling before he said, "Do you need something?" Gong Jian asked, "You're a body refiner?" Yang Yi replied, "Sort of." He'd come to the ancient city of Hallows as a body refiner, so he felt that it was better to make it public now. After all, it would allow him to avoid a huge amount of trouble. Gong Jian said, "Your strength isn't bad. Join my Alliance of Sabers and Swords. We'll give you 100 points every month. As for cultivation techniques, combat techniques, treasures, and other things like that, it'll depend on your performance." On the other hand, Mu Ling gazed at Fu Jingxian instead, and she said, "You're from the fire spirit race?" Fu Jingxian was slightly stunned, and then she nodded. Mu Ling continued, "The granddaughter of your patriarch, Su Jiqing, has joined my Lunar Right Hall. You can join as well if you want." Mu Ling's invitation stunned both Fu Jingxian and Gong Jian. It was especially so for Fu Jingxian because she felt that Mu Ling should be recruiting Yang Yi. Even though she was at the Monarch Realm as well, her combat strength was only ordinary. In next to no time, Gong Jian seemed to have thought of something, and he took a deep and long glance at Mu Ling and said, "What a plan!" In the beginning, Yang Ye's presence in their respective groups wasn't essential, but they'd stepped forward decisively when Yang Yi killed the second profounder, because Yang Yi hadn't utilized any profound energy when he did that. In other words, Yang Yi had relied solely on his physical strength to kill a Monarch Realm expert with a single blow, even though they were still unaware of Yang Ye's true strength. Just that was sufficient for them to recruit him. At this moment, Fu Jingxian figured out what was happening as well. Mu Ling wasn't really recruiting her, she was recruiting Yang Yi. Because if Fu Jingxian joined Lunar Right Hall, then it was very likely that Yang Yi would join as well. Even if Yang Yi didn't join, there would still be a chance because of Fu Jingxian. Mu Ling's plan was very good indeed. Unfortunately, Mu Ling wasn't aware that Fu Jingxian was merely working together with Yang Yi for now. I killed some fellows from Snow's Lament just now. Yang Yi looked Mu Ling in the eyes. He was naturally clearly aware of her intentions. Actually, he'd made up his mind when they came to recruit him, because he would be lost in the city if he were on his own, and it would definitely be more convenient if he had a group to rely on. Mu Ling stated, "We'll deal with it for you." Yang Yi continued, "I don't like being bound and controlled." Hey! Meanwhile, a woman who stood behind Mu Ling shouted coldly, "Don't try to take a yard when given an inch. You might die on these very streets if you don't have my Lunar Right Hall's help." Yang Yi paid no attention to the woman. He just gazed at Mu Ling while Mu Ling looked straight at him. A short while passed before Mu Ling said, "That'll depend on your ability. The strong are never bound no matter where they go. If you're strong, then no one in my Lunar Right Hall would dare to restrain you, and it's even to the extent that the Hall Master won't restrain you if you're strong enough. In short, whether you're bound or not doesn't depend on us. It depends on you." "All right." Yang Yi nodded. "Mu Ling, congratulations." Gong Jian suddenly started smiling, but his smile was quite odd. He said, "You've gained an expert. However, I hope you'll be able to resolve what comes next." As he spoke, he turned around and glanced at Yang Yi before he said, "You'll regret your decision. Perhaps." Yang Yi spoke indifferently. "Snow's Lament's forces have arrived." Someone shouted from afar. Everyone here looked over and saw a group of a few hundred experts shooting towards here. And it wasn't just that group alone. There were countless others approaching from all directions. No matter who tries to protect him today, only death will make us stop and leave. A voice resounded from far away. Countless people came over from all directions. Yang Yi noticed there were almost 1,000 of them with just a glance. Moreover, there were actually over 60 at the Monarch realm. Meanwhile, the rest were at the 5th rank of the Exalt realm or above. The man who led the group was at the 9th rank of the Monarch realm. "It's the Vice Master of Snow's Lament, Lung Wuxiang," one of the spectators gasped. "It's actually him. Hey, we're gonna have a show to watch now. That fellow is even more protective than Snow's Lament's master. Moreover, he even brought so many people and spoke such words. He clearly intends to kill that body refiner. If I were him, I would definitely stop at nothing to kill that fellow as well, because Snow's Lament would suffer a blow to its reputation if he isn't killed. Moreover, many people within Snow's Lament would feel displeased. After all, would anyone be willing to stay in a group that can't protect its members? Would anyone even dare to stay? So, this matter isn't just about a few deaths now. But Lunar Right Hall promised that body refiner that it would deal with Snow's Lament for him. Even though Snow's Lament is strong, it's still weaker when compared to Lunar Right Hall, right? The problem is whether Lunar Right Hall would be willing to fight Snow's Lament to the death just for a body refiner who's quite strong? I would absolutely not. It's not about being afraid of the trouble that I would face. It's because it isn't worth it. It isn't worth it at all to lead the entirety of Lunar Right Hall into a life and death battle for a single person. Cut the crap and just watch quietly. We'll know the true outcome in a moment. Lung Wuxiang and the others stopped 3M away from Yang Ye's group, and then he pointed a finger at the Yang Yi and Fu Jingxian. "I'm taking their lives today." Gong Jian and the others from the Alliance of Sabers and Swords moved aside, while an amused expression appeared on the corners of their mouths. Because it was very good news for them if Lunar Right Hall and Snow's Lament were to clash. Mu Ling's face fell slightly. "He just joined my Lunar Right Hall." She was making her stand clear. Lung Wuxiang's face instantly turned gloomy, and he said, "Mu Ling, my Snow's Lament's strength is inferior indeed when compared to your Lunar Right Hall. But is it really advisable for you to insult my Snow's Lament in public like this? It wouldn't be so difficult to accept if Yang Yi and Fu Jingxian had been members of Lunar Right Hall since the beginning. But the problem was that Mu Ling had recruited them while knowing that they'd killed so many members of Snow's Lament. That was like brazenly slapping Snow's Lament's face. Mu Ling pondered deeply for a moment and said, "My Lunar Right Hall will compensate Snow's Lament for their deaths." "You'll compensate us?" A ferocious expression appeared on Lung Wuxiang's face. "Mu Ling, Why don't you let me kill a few members of your lunar right hall and compensate you with some things? Mu Ling said, looks like you refuse to seek reconciliation. Then I'd just like to ask if you really dare to fight my lunar right hall to the death? Lung Wuxiang laughed fiercely and responded, I really don't, but the one who dares has given the order that the heads of those who dared to kill members of my Snow's Lament must be taken. So, kill. Show no mercy to anyone who stops you. Kill! The entire group in the surroundings roared furiously, and then they started surrounding Yang Yi and Fu Jingxian. The members of Lunar Right Hall revealed gloomy expressions when they saw those fellows charge over, and there was a trace of terror in their eyes. After all, there were only a few of them here. However, they were very clearly aware that they had to fight this battle because Lunar Right Hall would lose face if they didn't. In short, they'd aroused strong discontent towards Yang Yi now, because they wouldn't have fallen into such a situation if it wasn't for him. Fu Jingxian had the same reaction as those women from Lunar Right Hall. Her eyes were filled with worry, but she wasn't worried about herself. She was worried about Yang Yi. She was worried that he would go berserk. How presumptuous of you! Mu Ling roared furiously while a powerful aura swept out from her like a torrent. It struck the Monarch Realm experts in front of her to the point of being pushed back repeatedly, and the other profounders from Snow's Lament stopped their advance. Mu Ling had a pair of white jade rings in her hands, and she held them tightly as she stared fixedly at Lang Wuxiang. She said, Lang Wuxiang, I'm protecting them no matter what. If she knew that Snow's Lament would stop at nothing to kill them, then she would have definitely not recruited them so rashly. But it couldn't be helped now. If she were to hand them over now, then it would be Lunar Right Hall that lost face. Lang Wuxiang's face grew more and more ferocious. Right when the battle was about to erupt, Yang Yi suddenly walked over to Mu Ling. He glanced at the members of Snow's Lament, and then his gaze descended onto Mu Ling in the end. This occurred before I joined Lunar Right Hall, so I should deal with it. I'll join officially once I'm done. No one owed anything to anyone in this world, and these members of Lunar Right Hall owed him nothing. So he had no reason to make them fight to the death for him. Moreover, he was very grateful that they hadn't intended to give him over when they were surrounded. Even though he knew that they might have done that because of other reasons, he still felt grateful. In the end, it was kindness if one helped another because there was no obligation to do so. After all, it was something that had happened before he joined Lunar Right Hall. Yang Ye's words surprised everyone here. Are my ears deceiving me? He actually intends to face Snow's Lament on his own? Is there something wrong with him in the head? Does he think he's a monstrous genius who's ranked on the hallowed rankings? Besides those 3 monstrous geniuses in the top 3 positions on the hallowed rankings, there isn't any other genius on the hallowed rankings who dares to speak about fighting so many by themselves. How interesting! No matter what, I really admire this fellow. At the very least, he dares to take responsibility for his actions. Even though it's quite foolish, he's ballsy. He is indeed, but he's overestimating his strength. He has a chance at survival with Lunar Right Hall's help. Yet now, he'll definitely die if Lunar Right Hall agrees to his request. TSK. This show is getting better and better. Mu Ling and the others were slightly stunned, and the first thought in their minds was, is this fellow trying to court death? Even though the strength Yang Yi revealed was extraordinary, they didn't think that his true strength would be sufficient to fight 1,000 on his own. Moreover, there were around 60 Monarch Realm experts amongst the group. Mu Ling gazed at Yang Yi and spoke very seriously. Do you understand what you're saying? Yang Yi nodded and said, Of course. When he spoke up to this point, he pointed at Fu Jingxian and said, Take care of her for me and leave the rest to me. She asked, You're serious? Yang Yi replied, Of course. Mu Ling took a deep breath and said, If you're trying to test me, then there's no need for that. Since you've joined my Lunar Right Hall, then we have a responsibility to protect you. I can't guarantee if I'll be able to protect you, but I will definitely not abandon you. Yang Yi chuckled and said, I'm not testing you. In short, stop bringing up all these unrelated and unnecessary things. Just take my friend along and move back. I'll go join Lunar Right Hall with you after I've dealt with these fellows. As he spoke, Yang Yi paid no attention to Mu Ling's group, and he walked towards Lang Wuxiang's group instead. What's his name? Mu Ling gazed at Yang Ye's figure yet was asking Fu Jingxian who stood by her side. Young man. Fu Jingxian spoke softly. Yang Yi naturally couldn't use his real name. So, that was a name that they discussed before they arrived in the ancient city of Hallows. Young man. Mu Ling nodded lightly. She knew that she'd misjudged him slightly. You've really surprised me. Lang Wuxiang gazed at Yang Yi and said, You're very bold, but it can't prevent your death today. Because you've killed members of Snow's Lament. It was they who offended me first. Yang Yi spoke as he walked. Right, I gave that fellow called Shursan a chance just now. Unfortunately, he didn't cherish it. So I had no other choice but to kill him. Because they would kill me if I didn't kill them. You're courting death. Someone roared furiously. And then the profounders of Snow's Lament intended to charge over and chop Yang Yi into pieces. However, Lang Wuxiang stopped them. Seriousness appeared in Lang Wuxiang's eyes as he watched Yang Yi walk forward like he was taking a stroll through his own backyard. Lang Wuxiang was no fool. The fellow before him had been too composed and calm since the beginning, and it was to the extent that he and all the profounders from Snow's Lament seemed like they didn't exist to that fellow. There were only two possibilities that could explain such a situation. The first was that the man was a fool who was putting on an act, and the second was that he was extremely confident in his strength. He was confident to the point that he felt even Lang Wuxiang and all the profounders from Snow's Lament couldn't harm him. Moreover, this fellow before him didn't seem like a fool. But if Snow's Lament retreated now, then it would really be infamous. So he had to act. Lang Wuxiang stepped forward and said, Everyone else move 300 m back. They understood that he wanted to fight himself. Tighten palm. As soon as the others moved back, Lang Wuxiang roared furiously as he swiftly slapped his palms towards Yang Yi. In an instant, two enormous palms that were over 100 m wide overlapped each other as they flashed forward, and then they blasted down towards Yang Yi. A high-grade heaven-rank technique. One of the spectators spoke in a low voice. Mu Ling's face fell slightly. She knew that while Lang Wuxiang hadn't exerted his full strength, he hadn't held back much. The gazes of all the spectators converged onto Yang Yi as they wanted to witness his true strength. Yang Yi suddenly stomped his right foot on the group, and then he shot forward like a cannonball. Bang! Bang! Two explosions resounded when Yang Yi collided with those two enormous palms, and then they exploded apart. Meanwhile, Yang Ye's speed didn't decline in the slightest and arrived before Lang Wuxiang, and then he just executed a simple forward punch with his right hand. Lang Wuxiang's pupils constricted. He knew that he'd underestimated his enemy. He'd truly underestimated his enemy. At this moment, he didn't have the time to think, and he immediately clenched his right fist and smashed it against Yang Ye's fist.